Hello, students. Today our lecture will be on natural hazards. Part 1. I am Dr. Preeti Mathur, Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, SPC Government College, Ajmer. So, let us discuss what natural hazard is. A natural hazard is a natural phenomena that might have a negative effect on humans or the environment. Natural hazard events can be classified into two broad categories: geophysical and biological. Geophysical hazards encompass geologic, for example, of the distinction between a natural hazard and a disaster is that an earthquake is the hazard which is caused in the 1996 San Francisco earthquake disaster. Natural hazards can be provoked or affected by anthropogenic processes, for example, land use change, drainage, and construction. Geological hazards, these are avalanche. An avalanche occurs when a large snow or rock mass slides down a mountainside. An avalanche is an example of a gravity current consisting of granular material. In an avalanche, much material or mixtures of different types of material fall or slide rapidly under the force of gravity. Avalanches are often classified by the size or severity of consequences resulting from the event. Earthquake. You can see the diagram also, you can see the picture given. This is the earthquake which is shown in San Francisco in 1906. Seismic waves at the Earth's surface. Earthquakes may manifest with a shaking or displacement of the ground. When the earthquake occurs on the sea floor, the resulting displacement of water can sometimes result in a tsunami. Most of the world's earthquakes, that is 90% and 81% of the largest, take place in the 40,000 kilometer long horseshoe shaped zone called the Circum-Pacific Seismic Belt, also known as the Pacific Ring of Fire, which for the most part bounds the Pacific plate. Many earthquakes happen each day, few of which are large enough to cause significant damage. Coastal erosion. Coastal erosion is a physical process by which shorelines in coastal areas around the world shift and change, primarily in response to waves and currents that can be influenced by tides and storm surge. Coastal erosion can result from long-term processes. See also beach evolution, as well as from episodic events such as tropical cyclones or other severe storm events. Lahar. A lahar is a type of natural event closely related to a volcanic eruption and involves a large amount of material originating from an eruption of a glaciated volcano. Landslide. A landslide is a mass displacement of sediment, usually down a slope. It can be caused by pressure pulling natural objects down a declining hill. Now, sinkhole. A sinkhole is a localized depression in the surface topography, usually caused by the collapse of a subterranean structure such as a cave. Although rare large sinkholes that develop suddenly in populated areas can lead to the collapse of buildings and other structures. Now, students, volcanic eruption. It is very important and generally asked. A volcanic eruption is the point in which a volcano is active and releases its power, and the eruptions come in many forms. Now, introduction to natural hazards. Now, what is a geohazard? Earth processes involving the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere that, upon interaction with human activity, cause loss of life and property. Here in this you can see geoprocesses, which leads to human processes, and then the hazardous condition or result. It is important to understand the human element. Without it, there would be no hazard. Because of it, the science of geohazards becomes more important every year. Mitigation and reduction prevention. Why is the human element so critical? The Earth's population is increasing day by day. More people living in hazard prone areas. We know populations are becoming hyper concentrated and the consumption of resources are increasing day by day. For example, today there are 6 billion people on Earth. By 2025, there will be 8 billion people. Of these cities, 40% are coastal, prone to severe storm and tsunami damage, and a large majority lie in areas subject to other geohazards, for example, volcanoes and earthquakes. So, we cannot stop the geological process. We cannot stop the population growth, expansion. Therefore, we must try to reduce or mitigate the hazards through scientific study, population education. Thirdly, changes in the engineering or building practices and management plans and hazard response scenarios. There are different types of natural hazards. These are volcanoes, floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, etc. They can act adversely on human processes. They can occur without warning, for example, earthquakes, with warnings, precursors, for example, satellite monitoring of cyclone tracks, or the presence of ground deformation at a volcano before an eruption. So, to help mitigate the hazard, we need to know the frequency versus magnitude. How often a given event occurs in a certain region? And how powerful amount of energy released an event is. So F is for frequency here and M is for magnitude. For example, high magnitude hazards happen with low frequency but are much more destructive. Scope area affected by a given hazard. They can be local, like landslides, floods, earthquakes, fire. Regional, for example, tsunamis, volcanoes, larger earthquakes, cyclones, and global, for example, large volcanoes, global warming, meteorite impacts, etc. etc. So you can see these are some pictures shown here in this slide of earthquakes and tsunamis. So students, We'll discuss what are earthquakes in my next lecture, and how do these earthquakes occur, what are the main causes, and how can we magnitude about earthquakes, how can we know about the earthquakes which happened in St. Francisco. So we'll do all these things in our next lecture. So viewers, I thank you here, and I again just tell you my name, that is Dr. Preeti Mathur, Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, SPC Government College Ajmer. My email ID is given here, and so students, be tuned. We'll again meet in our next lecture. Thank you.